Sarah Chen stood in the central hall of the Galactic Naval Academy, staring at the wall that everyone called the warning board. The massive digital display stretched from floor to ceiling, glowing with a soft blue light that made the names seem to float in the air. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Each name represented a cadet who had tried the Kovac scenario and failed. She read through the list slowly. Species she recognized, and some she didn't. Krallick's names with their harsh consonants, Vendari names that looked like poetry, Threen names that were just numbers. The list went back 200 years. Every single one of them had failed. "You're not actually thinking about it, are you?" Sarah turned to see her friend Vec standing behind her. The young Krallick had all four of his arms crossed, which meant he was worried. His gray skin had taken on a darker shade. "Maybe," Sarah said. "That's insane." Vec moved closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Do you see this list? 847 attempts, 0 passes, and that's not even counting the ones who died." Sarah had heard the stories. The Kovac scenario wasn't just a test you could fail and walk away from. It was dangerous. 23% of the cadets who attempted it didn't survive. The simulation was that intense, that real. "Why are you even looking at this?" Vec asked. "You're doing well in all your classes. You don't need to prove anything." Sarah didn't answer right away. She kept staring at the names. There were cadets from every major species in the Alliance: Krallick, Vendari, Threen, Osari, Kelton, every species except one. "There are no human names on this board," she said quietly. Vec blinked his 3 eyes in confusion. "That's because humans are smart enough not to try it. Or because we're too scared to try." "There's a difference between being scared and being smart," Vec said. "This test is designed to be impossible. Commander Thrace says it himself every year. No one is meant to pass." Sarah had attended the briefing yesterday. Every cadet in the academy had to sit through it at least once. Commander Thrace was a massive Krallick, even bigger than Vec. He had served in 3 wars and survived battles that had killed entire fleets. When he spoke, people listened. She could still hear his words in her head. "The Kovac scenario is not a normal test. It is not designed to measure your tactical skills or your leadership ability. It is designed to break you. In 200 years, no cadet has passed this exam. Most don't survive. This exam doesn't test if you can win. It tests how you face certain death." The briefing room had been silent after that. Even the bravest cadets looked uncomfortable. "You're seriously considering this," Vec said. It wasn't a question anymore. Sarah finally looked away from the warning board. "My parents died protecting a colony world. Did I ever tell you that?" Vec's skin softened to a lighter gray. That was his species' way of showing sympathy. "No. I'm sorry. It was a small settlement. Pirates attacked. My parents were part of the defense force. They knew they couldn't win. The pirates had better ships, better weapons, more people. But my parents and the other defenders fought anyway. They held the line for 6 hours. Long enough for the evacuation ships to get away. 2,000 people survived because my parents and their team refused to run." "They sound like heroes," Vec said softly. "They were, but they lost the battle. Their ships were destroyed. All of them died." Sarah looked back at the warning board. Everyone remembers them as heroes who sacrificed themselves. But I remember what my mother told me the last time I saw her. She said that winning and succeeding aren't always the same thing. Sometimes you lose the fight, but win what matters. Vec was quiet for a long moment. "You think you can pass the Kovac scenario?" "I think I can try it differently than everyone else did." "How do you know how everyone else tried it?" Sarah smiled. "Because they were all trying to win. That's what the board shows. 847 cadets who tried to beat an unbeatable scenario. None of them passed because they were playing the wrong game. And you think you know the right game? I think I'm willing to find out. Vec sighed, all four arms dropping to his sides in defeat. You're going to do this no matter what I say, aren't you? Probably. Humans are crazy. You know that, right? Sarah laughed. I've heard that before. She walked to the input terminal next to the warning board. It was a simple interface: name, rank, species, and date. That's all it required. She placed her hand on the scanner and began typing. Sarah, wait, Vec said. Do you know what happens in the scenario? The details? Some. It's a combat simulation in zero gravity. 72 hours continuous. You command a damaged destroyer against overwhelming enemy forces. Ship systems keep failing. Crew members die. Resources run out. The enemy never stops coming. 72 hours, Vec repeated. Do you understand what that means? Humans normally sleep every 24 hours. Most species do. 72 hours without rest, without sleep, under constant stress. That's not just difficult, it's torture. I know. The physical stress alone could kill you. The simulation is full immersion. Your body will think it's real. The fear, the pain, the exhaustion, all of it. I know, Vec. Then why? Sarah finished entering her information. Her name appeared on the warning board, glowing softly at the bottom of the list, the first human name in 200 years. Because someone has to be first, she said simply. Footsteps echoed through the hall. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. Sarah and Vec both turned to see Commander Thrace approaching. The massive Kralix instructor stopped in front of them, looking down at Sarah with his 3 dark eyes. Cadet Chen, he said. His voice was deep and rough like grinding stones. I saw your name appear on the board. Yes, sir. Do you understand what you've just committed yourself to? Yes, sir. Commander Thrace was silent for a moment. His face was hard to read. Kralix didn't show emotion the same way humans did, but Sarah thought she saw something in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or pity. I've been the instructor for the Kovac scenario for 20 years, he said. I've watched cadets from every species attempt it. The brave ones, the foolish ones, the desperate ones. I've seen cadets die in that simulation pod. I've seen others come out broken, unable to continue their training. In all that time, not one has passed. I understand, sir. No human has ever attempted this scenario. Your species is considered mentally strong but physically weaker than most. 72 hours of continuous combat operations will push you beyond any limit your people have experienced in this academy. I'm ready, sir. Commander Thrace leaned down slightly, bringing his eyes level with hers. Ready or not, you will report to Simulation Base 7 at 0600 hours tomorrow morning. The scenario begins at 0630. Once it starts, it doesn't stop until you finish, die, or I pull you out for medical reasons. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Then may your gods be merciful, Cadet Chen. You're going to need their help. Commander Thrace turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the distance. Sarah and Vec stood alone in the central hall, the warning board glowing softly behind them. Sarah's name sat at the bottom of the list, looking small and fragile next to all those other names. Last chance to change your mind, Vec said quietly. Sarah shook her head. I'll see you after. If there is an after, she smiled. There will be, I promise. But as she walked away from the warning board, heading toward her quarters to prepare, Sarah felt the weight of what she'd just done. 847 cadets had failed. Many had died. The greatest tactical minds from dozens of species had tried and lost. She was just one human cadet. Nothing special, nothing extraordinary. But maybe that was exactly what the Kovac scenario needed. Someone who didn't know they couldn't win. Hour 36. Sarah's hands were shaking. She gripped the armrests of the captain's chair harder, trying to stop the tremors. Her body was betraying her. Humans weren't built for this. 36 hours without sleep, under constant stress, making life-or-death decisions every few minutes. Her mind felt like it was wrapped in cotton. But something strange was happening. The exhaustion wasn't getting worse in a straight line. It was changing. Her thoughts felt sharper in some ways, more focused, like her brain had given up on everything except the immediate problem in front of her. "Captain, another enemy wave approaching," her tactical officer reported. He was a young Kralix, barely older than Sarah. His gray skin looked pale with stress. 3 destroyers and a dreadnought. Sarah studied the tactical display. The numbers blurred for a moment, then snapped back into focus. She blinked hard. "Show me their approach vector." The display updated. The enemy ships were coming in from the starboard side, a standard attack formation. Predictable. Everything about this scenario was predictable, she realized. The enemy AI was following patterns. Patterns based on how previous cadets had responded. But Sarah wasn't responding like previous cadets. "Helm, give me a random course change. 73 degrees port, down 14 degrees. Her helm officer, a Threen, whose name she'd forgotten, turned to look at her. "Captain, that puts us on a collision course with the debris field." "I know. Do it." "But Captain, now." The Relentless lurched as its damaged engines strained to change course. Alarms blared as they headed toward a field of floating wreckage from earlier battles. The enemy fleet adjusted their approach, confused by the seemingly random maneuver. "They're recalculating their attack run," the tactical officer said, surprise in his voice. "We bought ourselves 4 minutes." 4 minutes. 4 more minutes for evacuation. 4 more minutes of life for her remaining crew. "Status on evacuation?" Sarah asked. Her XO checked her display. "Group 7 is away. 63% of the crew is now off the ship, Captain. But we're running out of time. Life support in the remaining sections is critical." Sarah did the math in her head. 63%. Better than she'd hoped, but not enough. She needed more time. Always more time. "Power down all non-essential systems. Shut down the port weapons array. Make it look like we're dying faster than we are." "That will limit our defensive options," the XO warned. "I know, but it'll make the enemy overconfident. They'll think we're finished. They'll take their time with the kill." The XO nodded slowly. "Understood, Captain." Sarah watched the tactical display as her ship went darker. Systems shutting down across multiple decks. To the enemy, it would look like the Relentless was on its last breath, which wasn't far from the truth. But the illusion bought her precious minutes. Minutes she used to evacuate more crew. Hour 40. Sarah stood up from her chair and immediately stumbled. Her legs barely held her weight. The XO caught her arm, steadying her. "Captain, you need to rest." "Can't rest. The scenario doesn't pause. At least sit down. You'll pass out if you keep pushing like this." Sarah shook her head, but the world spun. She sat down hard in the captain's chair. Her vision tunneled for a moment, then cleared. This was bad. Her body was shutting down. But there was still so much to do. She forced herself to focus. "How many crew left on board?" 47, Captain, including us. 47 out of the original 130. Sarah had saved 83 people. But she needed to save more. All of them, if possible. "Any luck repairing that damaged lifeboat's engines?" "Engineering says it's impossible, Captain. The damage is too extensive. The FTL communicator works, but the boat itself can't fly." Sarah's mind worked through the problem. The communicator was their only link to rescue. But if the lifeboat couldn't move, they couldn't evacuate more people. Unless... "Can we remove the communicator? Install it somewhere else?" The XO checked her technical readouts. "Theoretically, yes, but it would take hours, and we'd need to power it down during the transfer." Hours they didn't have. And if they powered down the communicator, the distress signal would stop. Any rescue ships heading their way might lose the beacon. Sarah rubbed her eyes. The exhaustion was making it hard to think. She needed sleep. Just 5 minutes. Just enough to clear her head. But she couldn't. The moment she stopped, people died. "Keep the communicator where it is," she said finally. "Maintain the distress signal. That's our lifeline." In the observation gallery, the crowd of watching cadets had grown. Word had spread throughout the academy. A human was lasting longer than most cadets ever had. Hour 40 and still going. The screens showed Sarah's face, pale and drawn with exhaustion, but still focused. "Her neural chemistry is extraordinary," one of the medical technicians said, reviewing Sarah's vital signs. "Human stress response is different from other species. Her body is producing massive amounts of adrenaline and cortisol, but instead of shutting down, she's entering a kind of crisis state, peak focus under extreme pressure." Commander Thrace listened but said nothing. He was watching Sarah carefully, watching how she moved, how she made decisions. Every cadet eventually showed their breaking point. The Kovac scenario was designed to find it. But Sarah Chen wasn't breaking the way others did. She was bending, adapting, finding new ways to survive. On the bridge of the Relentless, Sarah was making another random course change. The enemy fleet was getting frustrated with her unpredictable movements. They were used to cadets who followed standard tactical doctrine. Sarah was doing the opposite. Sometimes she powered up weapons for no reason. Other times she went completely dark. She fired at empty space, making the enemy think her targeting systems were failing. She broadcast fake damage reports on open channels, making them think she was more damaged than she was. All of it was lies. All of it was buying time. Hour 48. Halfway done. Sarah's body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Every movement required conscious effort. Her eyelids kept trying to close. She'd started seeing things that weren't there. Shadows at the edge of her vision. Voices that sounded like her parents. "Mom," she whispered once, seeing a figure standing at the edge of the bridge. But when she looked directly, no one was there. She was hallucinating. The sleep deprivation was getting severe. But she couldn't stop. Not yet. "Captain!" The tactical officer's voice cut through her fog. "The enemy is pulling back!" Sarah forced herself to focus on the display. The enemy fleet was retreating to a safe distance. Why? What had changed? Then she saw it. A new contact on the long-range sensors. Multiple contacts. Big ones, coming in fast. "What is that?" she asked. The tactical officer worked his console frantically. "I don't know, Captain. The IFF signals are... they're Alliance ships." Sarah's heart jumped. "What?" "It's a rescue fleet. They got our distress signal. ETA 6 hours. 6 hours. Relief flooded through Sarah, so intense it made her dizzy. They'd done it. The rescue was coming. All she had to do was hold on for 6 more hours, but then reality crashed back down. 6 hours. That meant hour 54. She still had 18 hours left in the scenario after rescue arrived. What happened then? She pulled up the technical specifications of the distress beacon. There it was, buried in the fine print. The beacon required 6 hours of continuous transmission while under fire to fully guide the rescue fleet through hostile territory. 6 hours, not 5 hours and 59 minutes. Exactly 6 hours, which meant she needed to stay alive, stay fighting until hour 54. And then she'd still have 18 more hours of scenario time left. "This isn't over," she said quietly. The XO looked at her in confusion. "Captain, the rescue fleet is coming. We won." "No, we haven't won yet. The enemy knows about the rescue fleet. They'll attack harder now, trying to destroy us before rescue arrives. And even after rescue gets here, we have to cover the evacuation, protect the rescue ships. That could take hours more." Understanding dawned on the XO's face. "The scenario doesn't end when rescue arrives. It ends at hour 72 no matter what." "Exactly." Sarah took a deep breath. which means the next 24 hours are going to be the hardest yet. The enemy will throw everything at us, and we have to survive it all. She looked at her remaining crew. 47 people. All of them exhausted, wounded, or both. But all of them still alive because of the choices she'd made. "Listen up, everyone," Sarah said, her voice carrying across the bridge. "Rescue is coming in 6 hours, but we have a long fight ahead of us before this is over. The enemy is going to try to kill us before help arrives. Then they'll try to kill the rescue ships. We need to hold this position and protect that beacon for 6 straight hours of combat. After that, we cover the evacuation for however long it takes. I won't lie to you. Many of us probably won't survive. But every minute we hold means more people get rescued, more people get home. That's what we're fighting for now. Not victory, not glory. Just buying time for others to escape. Can you do that?" Her crew looked at each other. Then, one by one, they nodded. They understood. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about sacrifice, about holding the line so others could live. "Good," Sarah said. "Then battle stations. The enemy is regrouping for their final assault. Let's show them what happens when you corner a dying ship." The Relentless, battered and broken, powered up its remaining weapons. Sarah Chen, exhausted beyond anything she'd ever experienced, gripped her armrests and prepared for the longest 6 hours of her life. Hour 50. Sarah couldn't feel her hands anymore. They moved over the controls, giving commands, but it felt like watching someone else's hands. Her body was operating on pure instinct now. Every system was breaking down. Her vision kept fading at the edges. Her hearing came and went, but somehow, impossibly, she was still functioning. The enemy hit them with everything. Wave after wave of missiles, energy weapons, kinetic strikes. The Relentless shook so hard that consoles tore free from their mounts. Hull breaches opened faster than they could be sealed. The ship was literally falling apart. "Forward shields gone!" someone shouted. "Fire on that cruiser!" Sarah ordered. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, distant, like it was coming from underwater. The ship's remaining weapons fired. One lucky shot caught the enemy cruiser's engine section. It spun away, disabled. A small victory. But the enemy had 20 more ships to throw at them. "Captain, we've lost weapons array 3. Reroute power from life support deck 9. We're not using it anyway." Deck 9 had been evacuated hours ago. Just empty corridors now. Sarah was cannibalizing her own ship, using every scrap of power to keep the weapons firing. Keep the enemy's attention focused on the Relentless. Keep them away from the escape pods still fleeing to safety. Her XO stumbled to her side, bleeding from a cut on her forehead. The Vendari woman's blue skin had gone pale. "Captain, engineering reports total engine failure in 10 minutes. After that, we won't be able to maneuver." "Then we've got 10 minutes," Sarah said. "Make them count." Hour 52. Sarah saw her father standing at the tactical station. He looked exactly like she remembered. Tall, strong, with kind eyes. He smiled at her. "You're doing well, kiddo," he said. Sarah knew he wasn't real. Knew it was the sleep deprivation and stress creating hallucinations, but God, it was good to see him, even if he was just in her head. "I don't know if I can make it." "Dad," she whispered. "You don't have to make it," her father said. "You just have to hold on a little longer. That's all anyone can do, 1 minute at a time." "I'm so tired." "I know, but look around you. Look at what you've done." Sarah looked. Her bridge crew was battered, exhausted, some of them wounded. But they were still here, still fighting. And out there in the darkness of space, 83 crew members were fleeing to safety in escape pods. 83 people who would have died if Sarah had tried to win the traditional way. "They're alive because of you," her father said. "That's what matters, not whether you win or lose. What you protect, what you save." Sarah blinked, and her father was gone. Just an empty space at the tactical station. But his words stayed with her. 1 minute at a time. She could do 1 more minute. Then 1 more after that. Hour 54. The rescue fleet arrived. Sarah's long-range sensors lit up with friendly contacts. 5 heavy cruisers, 3 destroyers, and 2 support ships. The cavalry had arrived. The enemy fleet immediately shifted tactics, trying to position themselves between the Relentless and the rescue ships. All ships, this is Captain Chen of the Relentless, Sarah broadcast on all channels. Enemy fleet is attempting to block your approach. I'm forwarding tactical data now. We'll cover your advance. Relentless, this is Admiral Korth of the rescue fleet. The voice was deep and authoritative, belonging to a Kralix. Your ship appears heavily damaged. Recommend immediate evacuation. Negative, Admiral. We still have weapons. We'll provide covering fire while you secure the area. There was a pause. Then Admiral Korth said, Understood, Captain. Your courage honors the fleet. All ships forward formation. The Relentless has bought us this chance. Let's not waste it. The rescue fleet charged forward. The enemy fleet met them head-on. Space erupted with weapons fire. Sarah coordinated the Relentless's attacks with the rescue fleet's movements, using her dying ship as a distraction, drawing fire away from the fresher vessels. But it was costing them. Every hit the Relentless took was potentially fatal. The ship had nothing left. No shields, no armor. Barely any hull integrity, just weapons and the crew operating them. Direct hit to the bridge. The XO's warning came too late. The ceiling above Sarah exploded inward. She felt herself thrown from the captain's chair. Pain erupted in her left side. She couldn't breathe, couldn't see. Strong hands pulled her upright. The XO's face appeared in her vision. Captain, stay with me. Sarah coughed. Blood came up. That was bad. Internal injuries. But she pushed herself to her feet anyway. The bridge was a disaster. Half the stations were destroyed. She counted 7 crew members down, maybe dead. The captain's chair was a twisted wreck. She limped to the helm station and pushed the dead officer aside. Her hands found the controls. Everyone still alive, report, she ordered. Voices called out. 12 crew still functional, 12 out of 47. The others were dead or too wounded to fight. But 12 was enough. It had to be enough. Hour 56. The rescue fleet was winning. The enemy fleet was pulling back, taking heavy losses. But they weren't giving up. They kept trying to break through to the escape pods, to the vulnerable refugees fleeing from the Relentless. Sarah wouldn't let them. Every time an enemy ship tried to flank, she was there. The Relentless, more wrecked than ship, limped across their path, drew their fire, took hits meant for others. Her body was shutting down completely now. She could feel it. Every breath was agony. Her vision was gray at the edges, fading to black. Her hands barely responded to her commands. But she held on. 1 more minute, just 1 more minute. Captain! The XO grabbed her shoulder. The rescue ships are securing the area. All escape pods are recovered. It's over. We can abandon ship. Sarah looked at the chronometer. Hour 58. 14 more hours in the scenario. But the evacuation was complete. Everyone was safe. Get the remaining crew to the rescue ships, Sarah said. That's an order. What about you, Captain? I'll stay with the ship. Captain, no. You'll die. The Relentless can't survive another hit. Sarah smiled. It hurt to smile. The ship doesn't matter anymore. Everyone's safe, mission accomplished, but someone needs to stay at the helm. Keep the enemy focused here instead of chasing the rescue fleet. I can do that. Captain. Go. That's an order, XO. Sarah's voice was firm despite her exhaustion. You've done amazing work. All of you have. Now go. Live. That's what this was all for. The XO's eyes filled with tears. It's been an honor serving with you, Captain. The honor was mine. One by one, her remaining crew evacuated to the rescue ships. Sarah watched them go on her sensors. 12 more lives saved. 12 more people who would go home to their families. Hour 60. Sarah was alone on the Relentless. The bridge was dark except for the glow of a few remaining displays. The ship groaned around her, metal stressing and breaking. It was dying. She was dying. But everyone else was safe. She fired the last weapons at the enemy fleet. Weak shots, barely scratches, but enough to keep their attention. Come on, she thought. I'm still here, still a threat. Keep looking at me. Don't look at the rescue ships. The enemy obliged. They focused all their fire on the Relentless. The ship screamed under the assault. Systems failed across all decks. Life support went offline. The bridge filled with acrid smoke. Fire broke out in the aft sections. Hour 66. Sarah's hands slipped off the controls. She couldn't lift them anymore. Her body had given everything it had. She slumped in the helm chair, barely conscious. The ship was still moving, still fighting, but she wasn't controlling it anymore. It was on automatic, following the last commands she'd given. The chronometer ticked forward. Hour 67, 68, 69. Through the failing view screen, Sarah watched the rescue fleet jump to FTL. They were gone, safe. Everyone she'd saved was now beyond the enemy's reach. The mission was truly complete. Hour 70. An enemy dreadnought moved into close range. Sarah saw its weapons charging for a final killing blow. She tried to smile but wasn't sure if her face moved. This was it. The end of the scenario. The end of the test. She'd lasted 70 hours, saved 94% of her crew, held the line long enough for rescue to arrive. Her parents would be proud. The dreadnought fired. The world exploded into white light and pain. The Relentless broke apart, its hull rupturing in a dozen places at once. Sarah felt herself being thrown, felt the simulated death as the neural interface replicated the trauma of vacuum and fire and destruction. Then, darkness. Hour 72. In the observation gallery, every cadet was on their feet. The screens showed the wreckage of the Relentless floating in space, nothing but debris. Sarah Chen's vital signs flatlined in the simulation, then slowly began showing reality again as the neural interface disconnected. Commander Thrace was already moving toward the simulation bay. His 3 eyes were wide with something that might have been amazement. The pod opened with a hiss of releasing pressure. Medical personnel rushed forward. Sarah Chen lay motionless inside, her face pale, eyes closed. For a terrifying moment, everyone thought she was dead. Then her eyes opened. Just a crack, just enough to see. Did everyone... Her voice was barely a whisper. Did the crew... 94% survived, Commander Thrace said, his voice gentle. The highest survival rate in the history of the Kovac scenario. Sarah's lips moved in what might have been a smile. Good. Cadet Chen, Commander Thrace said formally, loudly enough for everyone to hear. You passed. Sarah's eyes closed again. But she heard it. After 200 years and 847 failures, someone had finally passed the impossible test. Get her to medical, Commander Thrace ordered. Now! As they lifted Sarah from the pod, the observation gallery erupted in cheers. But Sarah heard none of it. She was already unconscious, her body finally allowing itself to shut down now that the mission was complete. She'd held on for 72 hours, and she'd won by learning to lose. Sarah woke up 3 days later in the Academy Medical Center. Her body felt like it had been beaten with hammers. Every muscle ached, her head pounded. But she was alive, and the lights were too bright, and she could hear the steady beep of medical monitors. All of which meant she was in the real world, not the simulation. Hey, you're awake. Vec's voice came from beside her bed. The young Kralix was sitting in a chair that was too small for him, all 4 arms folded in his lap. His gray skin looked lighter than usual. He was relieved. How long? Sarah's voice came out as a croak. 3 days. The doctor said your body went into shock from the neural strain. They've never seen a human push that far before. Vec leaned forward. You crazy human. You actually did it. Sarah tried to sit up. Pain shot through her ribs. Vec gently pushed her back down. Easy. You've got cracked ribs, a concussion, and about a dozen other injuries from the neural feedback. The simulation made your body think it was really injured. You need to rest. The test, Sarah said. Did I really pass? You really passed. Vec's face split in what passed for a Kralik smile. The entire academy has been talking about nothing else for 3 days. You're famous now, the human who beat the impossible test. Sarah closed her eyes. Famous. She didn't want to be famous. She just wanted to sleep for another week. The door to her room opened. Commander Thrace entered, his large frame filling the doorway. He looked at Vec, who immediately stood and saluted. I'll come back later, Vec said, giving Sarah a gentle pat on the shoulder with one of his 4 hands. He left quickly, leaving Sarah alone with the intimidating instructor. Commander Thrace pulled the chair closer to the bed and sat down. For a long moment, he just looked at her with his 3 dark eyes. Sarah tried to read his expression but failed. Kralik's faces were hard for humans to interpret. Cadet Chen, he finally said, do you understand what you did? I survived the scenario, sir. No. You did more than survive. Commander Thrace pulled out a small display and turned it so she could see. In 200 years, 847 cadets have attempted the Kovac scenario. The average survival rate for the crew in the simulation was 14%. Most cadets focused entirely on combat, trying to destroy the enemy fleet. They failed. The few who tried to escape were caught and destroyed. All of them were trying to win a battle. He swiped to another screen. You achieved a 94% crew survival rate. You recognized that the scenario was unwinnable through conventional tactics. So you changed the objective entirely. You weren't trying to win the battle. You were trying to save lives. That's what Admiral Kovac was testing for all along. Sarah's head was fuzzy, but she was starting to understand. The test wasn't about tactics. No, it was about understanding what victory really means. Commander Thrace set the display aside. Admiral Kovac created this scenario based on her own experience. 240 years ago, she commanded a destroyer that was ambushed. She couldn't win, so she focused everything on evacuation while holding the enemy's attention. Her ship was destroyed. She barely survived, but her crew made it out. She lost the battle but saved her people. That was the real victory. But no one else figured it out? No, because every cadet who attempted it was trying to prove they were a great tactical mind. They were trying to find the brilliant strategy that would win. They couldn't accept that sometimes there is no winning move. Sometimes the only choice is how you lose. Commander Thrace leaned back. But you understood. Maybe because of your parents. Maybe because humans think differently. Either way, you saw what others missed. Sarah was quiet for a moment. The 72 hours. That was testing human endurance, wasn't it? Partially, most species cannot function effectively after 48 hours without rest. Humans can push further, though at great cost to yourselves. But it was also testing determination, the willingness to keep going even when your body is failing. That's something humans excel at. So I'm not the first to understand the real objective? Commander Thrace's expression shifted slightly. It might have been pride. You are the first to understand it and have the physical and mental endurance to see it through. Other cadets might have realized the truth at hour 20 or hour 30, but by hour 50, they were non-functional. By hour 60, they were dead or had aborted the scenario. You lasted until hour 72. You held that line until every last person was safe. That's why you passed. The door opened again. This time, a group of people entered. Sarah recognized most of them as academy administrators and senior instructors. At the back of the group was Admiral Chen, a human woman with silver hair and stern eyes, Sarah's aunt. Admiral Chen pushed through the crowd and stood at Sarah's bedside. She looked down at her niece with an expression Sarah had never seen before. It might have been pride or fear, maybe both. "You foolish girl," Admiral Chen said quietly. "When I heard you'd entered the Kovac scenario, I thought I'd lost you like I lost your parents." "I'm sorry, Aunt May." "Don't be sorry. Be proud. You did something no one else could do. You proved that humans belong here, in the academy, in the fleet. You proved that our way of thinking, our stubbornness, our refusal to accept defeat, those aren't weaknesses. They're strengths." One of the other admirals, a Vendari male with elaborate markings, stepped forward. "Cadet Chen, your performance in the Kovac scenario has sparked considerable discussion among the Academy leadership. We're implementing several changes based on your approach." "Changes, sir?" "First, we're updating the scenario parameters to include human endurance baselines. No more species have attempted it since your success, but when they do, the simulation will be better calibrated. Second, we're revising tactical doctrine at the Academy. Your focus on crew survival over enemy destruction will be taught as an alternative approach to no-win scenarios. And third," he paused, "we're changing the warning board." Commander Thrace pulled out his display again and showed Sarah. The warning board still showed all 847 failed attempts, but at the top, in golden letters instead of the warning red, was her name, Cadet Sarah Chen. Below it, new text had been added. "First to understand, losing the battle can mean winning the war." Sarah stared at her name glowing in gold. It felt unreal, like she was still in the simulation, dreaming. "You've become a symbol, Cadet," Admiral Chen said. "Every species in the Academy now knows that a human passed the impossible test. Not by being stronger or smarter, but by being more stubborn. By refusing to accept that some people couldn't be saved. That's very human of you." Over the next few months, Sarah recovered and returned to her classes, but everything was different now. Other cadets looked at her with respect, or fear, or curiosity. Instructors used her scenario playback as a teaching tool. She gave lectures about her decision-making process, about how she'd changed the victory conditions. But the biggest change was in the cadets themselves. More of them started questioning the traditional approaches to problems. They started thinking about alternative victory conditions. They started asking what it really meant to win. 6 months after her attempt, graduation day arrived. Sarah stood in formation with her class, wearing her dress uniform. The ceremony was held in the central hall, directly in front of the warning board. Her name still glowed in gold above all the others. When her turn came, Admiral Chen herself presented Sarah with her commission as a junior officer. "Lieutenant Sarah Chen," the Admiral said formally, "you are hereby granted the rank and responsibilities of an officer in the United Systems Alliance fleet, but you're also being granted something else." She held up a small medal. It was unlike any Sarah had seen before. Simple, unadorned, just a circle of silver with a single star in the center. "This is the Kovac Medal," Admiral Chen explained. "It was created 200 years ago to be awarded to the first cadet who passed the scenario. Admiral Kovac herself commissioned it, believing that someday someone would understand. You are that someone. Wear it with honor." She pinned the medal to Sarah's uniform. The crowd erupted in applause. Even the alien dignitaries joined in, their various species' versions of approval filling the hall. After the ceremony, Sarah stood alone in front of the warning board one last time. Vec found her there. "Thinking about attempting it again?" he asked with humor in his voice. "God, no," Sarah laughed. "Once was enough for a lifetime. You change things here, you know. I attempted it last month." Sarah spun to look at him. "You what?" "Don't worry, I aborted at hour 40. I'm not as stubborn as you humans, but I lasted longer than I would have before, because I went in knowing it wasn't about winning. That helped. I still failed, but I failed better, if that makes sense." Sarah understood. "It does." They stood together, looking at the board. More names had been added since Sarah's attempt. None of them had passed, but their survival rates were higher. Their crews did better. They were learning. "What's next for you?" Vec asked. "Where are they assigning you?" "Destroyer duty." "The DFS Tenacious." Sarah smiled at the name. "Seems appropriate." "It does. Just promise me something." "What?" "If you ever face a real no-win scenario, remember that it's not a simulation. You don't have to sacrifice yourself to prove a point." Sarah thought about that. "I'll remember. But Vec, if it comes down to it, if I can save my crew by holding the line, I'll do it. That's what my parents did. That's what I'd want someone to do for me." Vec sighed, all four arms drooping. "That's what I was afraid you'd say. Humans are crazy." "Maybe. But we're crazy in useful ways." A month later, Lieutenant Sarah Chen reported for duty aboard the Tenacious. Her reputation had preceded her. The crew, a mix of species like most Alliance ships, looked at her with a mixture of awe and nervousness. Their new tactical officer was the human who'd passed the impossible test. The captain, a grizzled Threen veteran named Koss, called her to his ready room on her first day. "Lieutenant Chen," he said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into standard speech. "I read your file. Very impressive. But I need to know something. In the Kovac scenario, you sacrificed your ship to save your crew. Would you do the same on my ship?" Sarah met his eyes steadily. "If it came to it, sir? If it was the only way to save the crew? Yes. But I'd try every other option first. The goal is always to bring everyone home. The ship, the crew, and the mission. In that order." Captain Koss studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Good answer. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Welcome aboard, Lieutenant. I think you'll fit in well here." As Sarah left the ready room and walked through the corridors of her new ship, she felt the weight of her medal on her chest. The Kovac medal. A symbol of understanding that sometimes victory meant accepting loss. That sometimes the bravest thing wasn't winning, but choosing what to protect while losing. She passed crew members in the corridor. They saluted. She saluted back. These were her people now, her responsibility. And if the time ever came, if they faced a real impossible situation, she knew exactly what she would do. She would hold the line. She would buy time. She would save as many as she could. Because that's what her parents had taught her. That's what the Kovac scenario had tested. And that's what being human meant. Not winning every battle, but never giving up on protecting what mattered. Sarah Chen walked onto the bridge of the Tenacious and took her station. The ship was preparing for departure, heading out into the vast dangers of space. There would be battles ahead, maybe even impossible ones. But she was ready. After 72 hours in hell, after learning to win by losing, after proving that human stubbornness could break the unbreakable test, she was ready for anything. The stars awaited, and she would face them the only way she knew how. 1 minute at a time, one decision at a time, always protecting, always holding the line, always human. The enemy fleet charged forward, and the real battle began.